When billionaire Ethan Cole checked the hidden cameras he'd installed to keep an eye on his children, he expected quiet reassurance, the kind of control that made him feel safe. Instead, one ordinary afternoon shattered that illusion. On his screen, his maid Amara Lewis knelt on the nursery floor, her hands trembling while his twins cried beside her. For a heartbeat, he couldn't understand what he was seeing. Only the blur of movement, her shaking hands, the glint of something dark on her skin. His mind filled the gap with fear, blood. Panic took him before reason could catch up. Within seconds, he was on the phone to security, his voice tight, commanding men to rush upstairs, and then, almost without thought, he called the police. The mansion that usually thrummed with quiet wealth erupted into alarms and footsteps. Ethan reached the playroom first, his heart hammering louder than the sirens outside. "Step away from them!" he shouted as he burst through the door. Amara froze where she knelt. Noah clutched a towel around his arm. Ella hid behind her shoulder. The billionaire's face was pale with fury and dread. "I saw you," he barked. "The cameras, what did you do?" Amara looked confused, frightened, yet still gentle. I was helping him." Ethan couldn't hear reason over the blood in his ears. 2 guards hovered at his back, weapons drawn. Noah began to cry harder. "Daddy, stop." "She helped me." That was when Ethan saw it clearly. The towel patterned with cartoon whales, the scrape on Noah's skin no deeper than a paper cut. The blood was streaked with mud. Amara whispered that the boy had fallen on the garden rocks while building a mud fort. She had only been trying to clean and comfort him. Ethan's anger drained into shock. Outside, the police siren screamed closer, proof of the accusation he had already unleashed. Amara realized it too, her voice breaking as she said, "You thought I hurt them." He had no answer. By the time the officers left, confirming it was all a misunderstanding, the house felt colder. The twins clung to Amara, refusing to let go, but she gently pried their fingers free. "I'll pack my things," she said quietly. Ethan tried to stop her, but she shook her head. "Because you'll never look at me the same way again." Then she walked upstairs, leaving behind silence thick enough to choke him. That night, Ethan sat in his study replaying the footage frame by frame, watching the truth reveal itself in reverse. Each time he saw less threat and more tenderness. The way Amara cradled his son's arm, the calm in her eyes, the care he'd mistaken for guilt. The realization hollowed him. She had been protecting his children while he'd been protecting his pride. Near midnight, he crept into the twins' room. They were asleep, faces peaceful, small hands clutching the blanket Amara had left behind. Sitting there in the glow of their nightlight, he whispered the only words he had left, "I'm sorry." He didn't know whether he was speaking to his children or to the woman who had taught them to laugh again before he drove her away. The next morning, Ethan woke to a silence that felt like punishment. The house, always too large for one man, now seemed to echo with his mistake. The scent of Amara's cinnamon coffee still lingered faintly in the kitchen, a ghost of routine mocking him from the countertops she used to wipe spotless. He made the coffee himself, too bitter, too black, but he forced himself to drink it like penance. The twins padded in wearing mismatched socks, eyes puffy from crying. "Where's Amara?" Ella whispered, and Ethan's throat closed around the answer. "She had to go," he said. It sounded wrong, even to him. Noah frowned. "Because you yelled?" He didn't answer. Children had a way of stabbing straight through pretenses adults hid behind. When they went off to play, he sat in the chair she always used near the window and stared out into the garden where it had all begun. Mud still stained the rocks, and the small wooden fort Noah built sat half-collapsed under the tree. A single ribbon, Amara's probably, fluttered from a branch. He picked it up later, turning it over in his hands as if it could explain how everything had gone so wrong so fast. By afternoon, the emptiness became unbearable. He found himself dialing the agency that had sent her. The woman on the line recognized his voice immediately, syrup-sweet and cautious. "Mr. Cole, I'm afraid Miss Lewis requested her file be closed. She didn't leave a forwarding address." He tried to keep his voice steady. "Do you know where she went?" "I'm sorry, sir, we can't disclose that information." He hung up before the apology finished. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Money could buy silence, security, obedience, but not forgiveness. That night, he opened the security system again, but this time not to monitor. He deleted the footage from the cameras. One by one, Each click of delete felt like a confession, a small way to undo what his fear had built. Yet the last clip froze before disappearing. Amara laughing with the children in the garden days earlier, bubbles floating around them, her smile catching sunlight. He stared until his vision blurred, until he realized his cheeks were wet. He hadn't cried since the divorce. Days passed. The twins grew quieter. Meals went untouched. Even the cat avoided him. Lydia called once, her voice dripping condescension. "I heard about the incident. You finally scared another one away, didn't you?" He almost hung up, but something in him broke. "You remember what it's like raising them, Lydia? You remember being here when they cried?" The silence on the line told him everything. "You don't get to lecture me," she snapped before disconnecting. He didn't try calling back. Instead, he went upstairs to tuck the children in and found Ella clutching one of Amara's scarves. "It still smells like her," she whispered. Noah asked if they could write her a letter. Ethan hesitated, then said yes. They drew pictures of forts and flowers and hearts and left them on her old nightstand. When he turned off the light, the room seemed to breathe again, softer somehow, as if hope still lingered in the folds of fabric she'd left behind. The following weekend, a rainstorm hit the city. On impulse, Ethan drove downtown with the twins asleep in the back seat, no destination in mind. He told himself it was just a drive, but he kept glancing at faces on the sidewalks, at bus stops, under umbrellas, looking for her without admitting it. At a red light, he saw a woman in a familiar blue uniform standing outside a small bakery, clutching groceries to her chest to keep them dry. His heart kicked. It wasn't her, but the moment shook him. The light turned green and he didn't move until the driver behind him honked. Back home, he couldn't sit still. He called every number he could think of. Agencies, cleaning services, even the school Amara once mentioned working near. But no one knew her. By midnight, he accepted she might be gone for good. Still, he whispered her name once before sleeping, as if maybe the house would carry it to her. The next morning, an envelope lay at his door. No name, no stamp, just a folded piece of notebook paper inside. The handwriting made his breath catch. It was Amara's. "Mr. Cole," it read, "please don't worry. I found another position. Tell Noah and Ella I love them and that they should keep building forts even if they get messy. Thank you for letting me care for them. They made my days brighter." He read it again and again until the paper creased from his fingers. The relief that she was safe mingled with a heavier sorrow. She hadn't forgiven him enough to come back. He wanted to write her back, but there was no return address, only the faint scent of lavender from her soap. That night he sat in the children's room again, watching them sleep. He realized how small their world had become without her laughter. Amara hadn't just cleaned. She had filled every corner with warmth. She taught the twins to find joy in dirt and sky and silly songs. Things he'd long forgotten mattered. He whispered promises into the dark. To be softer, to listen, to never let fear speak louder than love again. For once he meant them. And somewhere deep inside that promise, he began to believe that maybe someday he could make it right. Days slipped into weeks, but the guilt didn't fade. It only changed shape. Ethan began rising early, making breakfast himself so the twins would have something warm on the table. At first, his pancakes were stiff and burnt, his attempts at braids lopsided, but the children didn't care. They giggled through the chaos, and he started to feel what Amara must have felt. How love and patience could fill a house far better than perfection ever could. Each morning he looked toward the gate, half hoping she'd appear with her calm smile and that humming voice. Yet she never did. One afternoon, while driving the twins to a bookstore downtown, he passed a small community park he'd never noticed before. A banner fluttered across its fence. "Neighborhood Family Fair, volunteers welcome." The words pulled at him in a way he didn't expect. The twins begged to stop, so he parked and followed them inside. The park was alive with noise. Children running, faces painted, people handing out food. At a folding table near the playground, a woman in a bright yellow raincoat laughed as she helped a group of kids paint flower pots. For a heartbeat, he thought his mind was playing tricks again, but when she turned, he saw Amara. She noticed him at the same moment. The laughter drained from her face, replaced by surprise, then caution. Ethan felt the same tightening in his chest as the day he'd accused her, but this time it was shame, not fear. He hesitated before walking closer, the twins already darting toward her with shouts of, "Amara!" The children reached her first, wrapping their arms around her waist. Amara knelt, hugging them back, her smile trembling. "You two have grown," she whispered. When she finally met Ethan's eyes, there was no anger there, just distance, the kind that comes after someone has learned to protect their peace. He started to speak, but she held up a hand. "They look happy. That's what matters." "I owe you more than an apology," he said quietly, "but if that's all I can offer, I'll still give it." Amara glanced at the crowd of families around them. "Then say it where it counts." She turned to the twins. "Go show me what books you picked, sweethearts." They ran toward a stall, leaving the adults alone. Ethan took a breath. "I was wrong," he said. "I saw what I wanted to see, what fear told me to. You were protecting my son and I treated you like a threat. I can't undo it, but I can tell the truth." Amara folded her hands. "I wasn't angry for myself, Mr. Cole. I was angry because the children saw it. They saw someone they love be doubted." Her voice stayed gentle. "I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were." He nodded slowly. "I wouldn't ask you to." She smiled then, small but real. "Good. Because I like where I am now." She told him she had started working with a local outreach program, helping single parents find childcare and jobs. "It's messy work," she said, "but good mess. Mud, not blood." Her laugh softened the air between them. For the first time since she'd left, he felt like he could breathe. Later, when the fair ended, Ethan helped pack up tables while the twins chased balloons. Amara handed out leftovers to families who needed them. Watching her, he understood what had always set her apart. She didn't see people by what they owned, but by what they carried inside. When the last crate was loaded, he turned to her again. "If you ever need anything, resources, funding, let me help. No strings attached." She studied him carefully. "You really want to help?" "Yes." "Then come next weekend," she said. "We're repainting the center. Bring clothes you don't mind ruining." He almost laughed. "Ruining I can do." That night, he told the twins they were going to volunteer on Saturday. They cheered as though he'd promised a theme park. For the first time in a long while, he felt anticipation instead of emptiness. On Saturday, they showed up early, paint rollers in hand. The community center was an old church building, walls cracked and peeling. Amara was already there, hair tied back, sleeves rolled. She handed them brushes and grinned. "Welcome to real work, Mr. Cole." By noon, everyone was speckled with paint. Ella managed to get blue streaks across her father's cheek, and even Ethan laughed. Between jokes and shared sandwiches, he realized that this, more than any corporate success, was what had been missing. Connection that asked for nothing in return. When the last wall was dry, Amara gathered the volunteers in a circle. "Look around," she said. "This is what happens when people stop being afraid of getting messy." Her eyes flicked to Ethan, not accusing but knowing. He nodded slightly, the weight in his chest finally lifting. Before leaving, he approached her one last time. "You taught me more than I deserve to learn," he said. "If you ever need a partner for this work, someone to build instead of just fund, call me." She smiled. "Maybe I already have." As dusk settled over the neighborhood, Ethan and the twins walked back to their car, their shoes sticky with dried paint and dirt. Noah looked up at him. "Dad," Amara said, "getting messy is good." "You think she's right?" Ethan glanced down at the streak of blue on his hand, at the laughter echoing from the center behind them. "She's always been right," he said. When they drove away, the evening sun caught the newly painted walls and made them glow. Ethan watched the reflection in the rearview mirror until it disappeared, knowing that for the first time in his life, what he'd built would last, not because it was perfect, but because it had been done with open hands. Months passed, and the rhythm of Ethan's life changed quietly, like a tide that had finally learned to move with the moon. The security gates of his mansion still stood, but he rarely looked at the screens anymore. Most mornings began with breakfast made by his own hands and the twins' chatter echoing through the kitchen. They had grown louder, happier, bolder. Mud stains on the floor no longer made him flinch. He had learned that stains could be signs of life. Every weekend they returned to the neighborhood center where Amara worked, sometimes to paint, sometimes to serve food, always to listen. Ethan didn't try to be anyone's savior. He came to learn. He discovered that real wealth wasn't in his accounts, but in the stories people carried. Parents working 2 jobs, teenagers chasing scholarships, old women teaching music to kids who couldn't afford lessons. He learned how to fix a leaky pipe, how to stretch $1's worth of supplies into a week of meals, and how laughter could heal faster than reprimands. The center had become a second home for his children, and through them he understood what Amara had meant about good mess. It wasn't disorder. It was life spilling over the edges of comfort. One late autumn afternoon, the center held a small ceremony to celebrate its reopening. New murals covered the walls, painted by the children. One showed 2 small hands, one pale, one brown, building a tower together. When Ethan arrived with the twins, Amara was already there, directing volunteers and balancing a tray of lemonade with effortless grace. She greeted him with the same calm warmth she gave everyone else. There was no awkwardness now, only mutual respect born from shared work. During the speeches, the director thanked the donors and the volunteers. When Amara was invited to speak, she looked out at the crowd. Neighbors, children, families, Ethan and the twins among them. "This place isn't about charity," she said. "It's about trust. We all learned that sometimes people make mistakes and sometimes they change. What matters is that we keep showing up for each other." Her eyes met Ethan's just long enough for both of them to remember everything that had passed between accusation and forgiveness. The applause that followed was for her, but he clapped hardest. After the crowd thinned, the twins tugged at Amara's sleeve. "We made you something," Ella said, handing her a small envelope. Inside was a child's drawing. Amara holding their hands, a big sun overhead. Across the top, in uneven letters, it read, "Thank you for making Daddy nice." Amara laughed, tears glinting in her eyes. "I think he did that himself," she said. Ethan smiled. "With help," he replied softly. When they said goodbye that evening, the air smelled of paint and rain. The center lights glowed behind them like a beacon. Amara waved as the twins called out promises to visit next weekend. As Ethan drove away, he looked in the mirror and saw her talking with another group of volunteers already planning the next project. He realized that forgiveness hadn't just healed his conscience, it had given him a reason to live beyond himself. Back at the mansion, he walked through the quiet halls that once echoed only with loneliness. Now there were drawings taped to the refrigerator, laughter still caught in the air, and a framed photograph of the center on his desk. He sat for a long moment, watching the night settle over the garden. The moonlight fell across the rocks where Noah had once scraped his arm. The same place that had started it all. He knelt and touched the stone, now smooth and clean. "Thank you," he whispered. Not to anyone in particular, but to the lesson itself. The next morning, when the twins ran outside to play, Ethan followed. He didn't shout when they jumped into puddles or tracked mud across the patio. He joined them, shoes splashing, laughter rising through the chill air. For the first time, his world felt whole, not spotless, not perfect, but alive. He looked up at the wide gray sky and felt peace settle where pride used to live. Whatever mistakes he'd made, they had led him here, to a life that was messy, honest, and human. And that, he realized, was the truest kind of wealth there could ever be.